Hello and welcome to this workshop on new quizzes in Canvas. I'm Greg Beyer, your distance education coordinator, and I'm so happy to everyone who's decided to spend some of their valuable time here today. The new quizzes tool is a replacement for the classics quizzes tool that Canvas has created, and it is their intent at some points to turn off classics quizzes and replace it entirely with new quizzes. We are nowhere near there yet, although this tool, New Quizzes, has been around for several years. I will jump actually directly to the takeaways from today's session. I've got four. Number one is that you can use new quizzes and classics quizzes in the same course. I'm doing that actually myself this semester in my history class, and I'll mention that during the workshop. Instructure has ceased development of classics quizzes, so they are not doing any work on adding features to that or making any changes. All of their development effort related to quizzing is focused on new quizzes. I mentioned this before, there is no deadline for the conversion to new quizzes. They had a deadline at some point, but they kept pushing it back and pushing it back. And part of the reason they have no deadline is connected to the fourth takeaway for today, and that is that we as ordinary users can influence the development of new quizzes by participating in the Instructure community. There's a space called the New Quizzes Hub. I'll share that in today's session. And of course, there'll be links to this and a couple of other resources included with the recording. Another example of a change in their development plans, which I'm really excited about because I use surveys in my classes, is that they originally were not going to include surveys at all in new quizzes. A lot of users complained. There was a lot of angst about this expressed in the Instructure community, and they changed their minds. And so they now have put that on their development roadmap. We hope that sometime this year in 2023 that we'll be able to have have a surveys tool as part of new quizzes. I'll go ahead and do any questions there as I'm getting started here?
Nope, none from me.
Okay. So I've got two topics today. I'm going to cover the settings and questions. So basically creating a new quiz from scratch. I'll be talking about how it's different from old quizzes, and I'll be focused on, of course, those differences and what has changed. And then also I'll talk about migration and demonstrate migration. Migration is what we do to convert an old quiz to a new quiz, or a classics quiz to a new quiz. The screenshot I've got there is something that you'll see when you create a new quiz, or you create a quiz rather, in a course where new quizzes is enabled, and that is you choose, right? If this quiz I'm creating is going to be a new quiz or a classics quiz, and then at the moment you're creating that choice, you can see there's a checkbox to make it default for courses. So I'm going to go straight into my demo course and talk about this. Because new quizzes is a feature option, it is off by default in courses at CRC. So to turn it on, I would go to the settings page in my Canvas course, and then go to the feature options tab. And then new quizzes is an option. So I will enable that. And now I can enable new quizzes in this course. There is an option as well, if this is a feature option, to defaults to new quizzes. So you can make new quizzes from the beginning if you want to. To show you how to create a new quiz, I'll of course go to the quizzes page. And I'm going to check something right now. I can't remember this off the top of my head. If I'm in the modules page and I want to create a quiz, I can create a quiz here. I'll just put test for this and see if this will work. Nope, it created a classics quiz. So this is an important thing to know. When I'm creating a quiz from the modules page, I needed to, it defaults to classics quizzes. So to create a new quiz where I have both options, I'm going to do this from the quizzes page. And I'm going to delete the test quiz that I just created. And now I'm going to create a new quiz. And here's that dialog. It's asking me, do I want to create a new quiz or a classics quiz? I'm going to make this a new quiz and then select submit. And with a new quiz, the way it's currently set up now, there are actually two different interfaces or two different pages where we make changes. This page we're looking at right here is the default for an assignment in Canvas, right? There's a name, you see the points possible, also the dates. And this is, it's on this page here where we, again, set up these things. And then it's the other page, which is called the build page, where we actually work with the new quizzes interface. So I'm going to call this my new quiz test. One of the things that's different between new quizzes and classics quizzes is the points for the assignments are dictated on this page, and they are not a sum total of the points per question. So that's classics quizzes. The points for the quiz were always a sum total of the points of all the questions. Here, we dictate the points for the assignment, and then Canvas will automatically convert that ratio, right, of the points per question to this point here. So I will make this a 10-point quiz. I can't change the external tool because I've selected that by making this a new quiz. But I've got the assignment name, the points, and then, of course, any dates will be part of this as well. I see a question there. Is this available for us to add to our Canvas now? Yes, it is available right now. I'm actually using new quizzes for my history classes this semester, and I'll talk about some of the changes, some of the things that I discovered as I migrated those quizzes over. Okay, so again, on the traditional Canvas assignment interface, we've got the name, we've got the points, the grading options, right, how it appears in the gradebook, and of course, assignment dates. And at this point, there's a new button here because this is a new quiz and there's a build button. So the language of quizzes, basically for new quizzes, if you're editing a new quiz, you would get this interface. And if you're building a new quiz, you would see the interface. And I'll show that in a different way. So I'll just select the save button here. I'm going to go, okay, it takes me to my quizzes page. That's great. So here's the new quiz test that I created. Notice how the icon is a little bit different here. It's a filled icon, a solid icon versus just the outline. When I select the Atkins menu for this new quiz, I have these options here, edit and build. If I select edit, I'll be back to where I was before, right? Name, points, dates. If I select build, I'll be in the build interface. And now I am building a new quiz. Again, that's their word Instructure used. And so I'll talk about the changes here and kind of go through it. And I'm going to focus on what's different. So the title, the instructions, right? We should be familiar with that. There's the add instructions button right there. If we want to add questions, or we would then select the plus button here. So this is how we build it as we're going along. But before I get to questions, I want to focus on settings. And here are the settings that are different from new quizzes. There's a settings button up here. Again, focusing on what's different, I can do, let's see, shuffle questions. There we go. So with classics quizzes, the shuffle questions option is only within a question group. And it's only within that group that the questions will be shuffled. In new quizzes, you can say shuffle questions and the whole quiz gets shuffled. Again, that's the order that the questions are presented to the students. Shuffle answers, right? That's the same thing within the questions. If you allow multiple attempts, again, focusing on what's new, and you allow multiple attempts, you can dictate a certain number and everything. What's new is you can require a waiting period between attempts. So you can say, all right, if my students take the quiz, I don't want them just taking it over and over. I'm gonna want them to wait 10 minutes. Oh, you know what? They probably haven't done the reading. I'm gonna give them some time to do the reading. So I'm gonna say to my students, you cannot retake this until you've waited at least an hour. And then there's also an option here you see for multiple choice questions to allow clearing the selection. So if a student, selects one option and they don't want to change it, but they want to just erase it, they can. That's an option that we have. There's a calculator option. You can allow the calculator. And I'm going to go ahead and say one of the things here, I don't need to save changes here when I'm in the build mode. These changes are saved automatically. One other change I want to mention here before I pause for questions is on the moderate page. If you have a student who gets extra time, you can give them bonus time, and that applies to all new quizzes for this student in this course. So you don't have to do it quiz by quiz by quiz. which is what you have to do with classics quizzes, which I think is really, really neat. It's an exciting thing that I think for our students who receive the accommodations of extra times on quizzes. So I think that those of us who learn about this will also like that a lot. I'll go ahead and hit cancel here. Any questions on that before I go on to one more thing before I start building the questions?
No, but I love that moderate feature because that's been a problem for me is I'll try to, give students extra time, but I accidentally will miss one on accident, that you're going through. And so it's just nice to know that there's at least a backup or a better way of getting it done. So that's awesome. That makes me
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, I know that's been something that I've mentioned in the Canvas community, and I'm sure it's not just because I mentioned it, but there are other folks as well who are like, why can't we just apply it to the student? Because it's the student who gets the
Yeah,
accommodation, right? Not the quiz.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So
that's awesome.
when I hit the return question here, I'm going to exit the build mode because there's one other thing about settings that I want to mention. I'll hit return. I think this will take me back to the list of quizzes. Yes. What's new about new quizzes, one of the other changes is that you can duplicate a quiz. You don't have the option to duplicate a classics quiz. Click the duplicate a quiz, and then everything that was within that quiz has been copied. So this is a nice way to, if you want to give students the same quiz multiple times during a semester, perhaps, but you don't want to have to recreate it or retype the questions or anything, it's relatively easy to do that. Okay, so I will delete that one. And I'm going to go into build mode and talk about the questions. Okay, and I'm sorry, let me go back and talk through again what I was saying. So you can be editing a new quiz and there's a build button on the page, or when you're looking at the list of quizzes, you can select the Atkins menu and there's a build option there. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the questions and again, focus on what's different. There are new question types that are part of new quizzes. And I'm going to focus again on I've got a nice list here of stuff that I want to do for my demonstration. So categorization is new. With a categorization question, students get a list of items and they have to move those items into the categories that you select. And you can include distractors. So those are items that don't belong in any of the categories. And the score for this is all or nothing. In other words, the students either get everything correct or they lose the points. So I will select categorization. Question title is not something that I normally do, but it helps us find questions when we're trying to add them, all right, to another quiz. And I will go ahead and again, I normally don't do this, but because I mentioned, I'll type something here. I'm going to say states and bodies of water. Again, that's the question title. Students never see, only I do. The question stem is the question itself. So I'm going to do some copying and pasting here because I got some prep here. So I'm telling my students here, group the states based on which body of water they border. Not all states border one of the oceans listed. And I'm letting my students know that there are some distractors in there. You can have multiple categories. The default is 2. That's all I'm going to use here. And I'm going to say Pacific Ocean, and Lake Superior. And the answers for the Pacific Ocean are Alaska, Hawaii, California, Washington, and Oregon. States that border Lake Superior are Michigan. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Lake Superior, it's Lake Michigan. Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana. And the distractors I'm going to put in are Arizona, and Ohio. And I see a question.
Oh, I started talking without mute off. So my question is about the categorization. You said you don't typically do that. Is that right? You don't typically look
No, this is a
it?
new question. This is a new question type.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I was just curious if like this will help with tracking what questions would be specific for outcome assessment?
I think it could be. I think it depends on what you're assessing.
Okay.
Yeah, like if it was one of my outcomes that my students, if I were teaching a class where learning the location of the American states, right,
Uh-huh.
where they are on a map, more or less,
Yeah.
that certainly would help. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry. I'm confusing things as I'm watching and listening. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. You can align to outcomes. So there's a way, this is also new with new quizzes, is to align the questions directly with an outcome. I'm not going to cover that today, but I haven't yet done that. That's probably why, but I'd love to learn more about that. There's an on-screen calculator. So you have the option to enable students with a calculator. And if you do that, of course, I won't do that for this question. You have the option to give them a basic or a scientific calculator. So that, of course, will make a difference in some of our classes. And then item banking, you can add to an item bank. So in classics quizzes, they're called question banks. In new quizzes, they're called item banks. So there is a difference between those two. Currently, and when I get to migration, I'll show this. Currently, question banks do not get converted to item banks. And it has a consequence for how we migrate quizzes, which again, I'll demonstrate later today. So I am done with this question. I'll select done. And at any time while you're building a new quiz, there's a preview button up top and you can see what it looks like. So this is exactly what my students would see with this new quiz. You can see there's no description, right? I didn't put any introductions there, so it's just the title. And then the students would, basically go through this, and I'm going to get it wrong. And then whatever my submission feedback options are, right? So the results are not displayed. Oh, great. Thanks, instructor. All right, so that's an option that we have as instructors. So that's the categorization question. And I didn't mention here, let me go back to edit. A couple of other things here. The points possible is at the bottom, right? So this is by 1 point. And then also at the bottom, there's a little feedback icon. And this is where we can add feedback for if the student gets the answer correct, if they get it incorrect, or regardless of how the correct status of their answer. So those options, again, are there in that. So I'll click cancel here. I'm going to leave this a 1 point question. And I'm going to go next to ordering, which is also a new question type. Ordering. So in an ordering a question, again, the question title is something that only we see, that our students don't see. The question stem is the title. And let's go ahead and do some copy and paste here. You can or you cannot add labels if you wish. I'm going to go ahead and do that because I think it's helpful for students. And in this example, there actually happen to be 4 answers. So I will put them in the correct answer here. Photo was first. And then Sam Gamgee. And Mary Brandybuck. And Pippin Took. Okay. Again, I've got the option for calculator, display answers in a paragraph. Oh, I'm not sure what that looks like, so I'll check it out. Include labels, again, that's an option there. Points and all that. So let's select done. I guess this is paragraph here where it's all in one line. Let's edit it and take that off and see if that changes it. Yeah, so it's the vertical list versus inline. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one that I'm going to mention here. I'm going to go to hotspot. Now, hotspot, unfortunately, is not accessible. Not accessible to users required keyboard access or screen reader. So hotspot Germany. Now I'm going to say Berlin. I'm going to add the question STEM, show you what the question looks like, and then I'll talk about the accessibility options. And this question STEM is select which German city was divided between East and West despite being entirely within East or West Germany. And I will find that image that I downloaded. Where is it? I think it's this one here. Yep. So there's my image, and the hotspot is the city of Berlin. And I have these options here to draw an oval or a square or a polygon. I'm going to just stick with square and then click and drag over the city of Berlin. And I'm going to select done. And then I'll stop here, do the preview, and then talk about accessibility. Now let's preview this quiz. And actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to edit preview, go back to settings, and let's show the results, right? Not restrict student view. Let's go ahead and show them everything. And then go to build and preview. Okay, so again, I'm going to take this quiz as a student with preview mode. Okay, good. So we've got the first question there, right? I drag the student, the hobbits in order. I'll get that one correct. And then I'm a student taking this, right? You can see as I move the mouse pointer around, there isn't anywhere that of course, there's no indicator to me that this is the correct answer or not. That makes sense. I'm going to get it wrong, right? Oh, there, I clicked a dot, perfect. And then I'll hit submit. Okay, I didn't answer one of the questions, no problem. So I should have got a score of 1 out of 3. Yep, 1 out of 3 points. It shows me my answer. Again, I didn't choose any of the options. I got this one correct. And again, it shows me the correct answer here. So the hotspot, I'm sure you can imagine lots of ways to use a hotspot with your discipline. This is exactly the kind of question that I would ask in a history class when I talk about the Cold War. And I think it's interesting that, you know, Berlin was divided between East and West, and it was entirely within East Germany. And when the Cold War got less cold, more hot, whatever, there were several conflicts that occurred there. So the solution for an accessible version of this question is actually to create a second quiz and replace this question with an accessible question. So it might be multiple choice or whatever, right, some other question type. And then edit the second quiz so that the only students who take it are the students who have the accommodation. And then for those students on the first quiz is to excuse them from the quiz. So I'll show you how you could do this. Let's exit the preview and select return. I'm going to publish this quiz so that I can show it and it'll be there in the gradebook. I'll duplicate this quiz, right? So here's a copy of this quiz I just created. And there we go. I'm going to edit the copy of the quiz. So that's select edit. And when you're editing a quiz, right, or any assignment, you can say, you know what, I only want Frodo to take this quiz. And when I hit save, it's going to warn me, Canvas warns me, hey, not every student's going to see this. Yeah. No, I don't want to do that. Only Frodo can take this. So I'm now going to build this quiz, and I need to get rid of the hotspot, and we'll just pretend that I replaced it with another question. You know, we all know how to do that. Hit return, and then go into the grades page. Where is grades? There it is. And Frodo is the one student who's not going to see that quiz. So already for the grades, right, for every other student but Frodo, they can't see the new quiz test copy there. And then for Frodo, I'm going to take this assignment and I'm going to excuse it for the student. So when Frodo, so let's take a look at a couple of grades here. When Eleanor looks at her grades, right, she can't see the new quiz there, new quiz test, right? She hasn't taken it yet. Okay, and her total points are 86, all right? So I'll remember that, 86. Now let's take a look at Frodo. Make sure I'm doing this right here. And let's take a look at Frodo's grades. He got excused, so that's fine. And his points total are also 86, perfect. So this is a way to this is a way to allow for the use of the hotspot question type, but yet meet the needs of helping all of our students achieve the learning outcomes. Obviously, it requires some work on our part because we'd have to write an alternate question for those hotspot questions. And then from the student's perspective, right, the students who are not receiving the accommodation, they don't see the extra quiz at all. They see the hotspot question. The students who are receiving the accommodation, you know, they do see that they are excused from that other quiz, but I have a feeling that most students who, you know, are low vision or aren't able to access a keyboard, they probably already know that they're receiving accommodations. So, you know, in my judgment, this particular extra thing I see, I don't think it'd be too bad for those students. So let me pause there, come back to this new quiz. And I've got one more question that is one more question type that I want to talk about. Oops, I didn't select the build button, so I'm still getting to that habit. Any questions on what I just covered on those question types plus the hotspot?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So the one other question type that's kind of, it's new, but it really combines several other question types is a question type called fill in the blank. And fill in the blank combines fill in the blank, of course, fill in multiple blanks and also multiple drop downs. So those were different question types that classics quizzes had. This question type covers all of those. And my assessment, I mean, I like hotspot for the visual part of it, but I think that this question type is actually the most powerful of all the new questions or all the ways that they've done this. So if I click on that and let's see, so I'm going to say fill in the blank, and this is about, where's my question here? Oh, fill in the blank, Macbeth. So how fill in the blank works is you type your question and the blanks, and you can have as many as you want. So this is multiple blanks. I'll only have one for this demo that describes Macbeth's feelings about hosting the king. So I'm going to put the quotation marks here. And this is where the blank is. I'm going to type that word blank there because I'll come back to the specific formatting there. Okay. So to set off a blank, the word you type, students won't see, but if you set this off with backward ticks, so the backward tick is the character that is next to the one, to the left, the one on the, I'm in a Mac and I think Windows keyboards are the same, right? And as soon as I type that second backward tick, so I'll do this again, you see where it says the keyword that I typed in there, and then I've got the answer options, and that keyword, it's got a number 1 to it, right? There's one blank in this question. That appeared as soon as I typed that second tick. So here's what my students would see. And then the answer type, there are 3 different answers types. There's open entry, so that's where students get a box or they type something in. Drop down, right? They choose from a list. So if you use drop downs and you have multiple drop downs, that's a kind of a way of having a multiple choice question, right? Multiple choice answers. And then word bank is where they see a list of words and they have to select the words that apply there. And word bank is in some ways like categorization, where you can have multiple categorization things. And if you use word banks, you have the option of giving students the same word bank that they would use for all the questions, or you can have a separate word bank for each blank, if that makes sense. But I'm going to go with open entry because the open entry options, I think, are really cool. One is there's text match. So if they type, wait, where's my correct answer? Oh, right. So work is right. That's the word that I type for my keyword. That's not the correct answer, but in other words, they have to type the word work to get a correct answer. Close enough means they have to type something close enough. And there's a thing called the Levenstein distance. And the Levenstein distance is a measure of how close something is to, where am I on my, I need to get my words here because this was new to me. Yeah, close enough basically is the number of changes that would have to be made in order to match the correct answer. And then you see that you've got the option to ignore case. Okay, I'm not going to do that. Exact match means typing exactly what that correct answer is. Again, that's in that keyword there. Specify correct answers. This is where I could type all the options, the correct answers that I would like. And I'll tell you what the correct answer is. It's actually the word labor. But because Shakespeare was English and the English spell words differently than they do, then I want to allow my students to type labor with an OU as well. Depending on the class I'm teaching, that may or may not matter. So I could type multiple correct answers, right? To think of all the possible permutations that I would allow my students to get. Or, and this is something we had before, but the new thing here that new quizzes has is regular expression. And regular expression is basically writing a code that would allow for the various options here. So the regular expression for this answer here is to spell it out, L-A-B-O-U-R, and to add a question mark after the U. And the question mark is the code that tells the program whether or not a U is there, it's a correct answer. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate this in a moment here, but let me pause and see if there's any questions you have on this.
Nope, no questions. This is
Okay.
awesome. Thanks.
So I'll select done. And then before I do that demo, I'm going to mention one other thing that's different, and that is instead of a block of text. So in classics quizzes, there was a way that you could get it was a rich content editor. So you could get a block and fill it with stuff. New quizzes replaces that with what's called stimulus. And a stimulus is where you get the block. So here's the content, I could fill stuff in it. And then you can add questions that are part of the stimulus. And you can choose whether those questions are to the right, which is the default here, right? I could add questions here. Oh, that's content. Okay, let's see. Right, I could add questions here. Oh, content cannot be blank. Oh, here, fine. I have to do that first. There we go. There we go. So there's my stimulus, and I can attach questions so that the stimulus, right, the rich content editor with an image perhaps or text or media could be there. And then the questions can be on the right side, or one of the options was underneath. So that's a change that's there. And then the only other options I want to mention that are changes is for multiple answer questions. So that's where, right, you can say, you give them a list of 5 things and tell them select which of those apply to this to answer this question correctly. For multiple answer questions, we now have the option to give partial credit. So I believe that's new in quizzes. And basically it's correct answers minus incorrect answers. And then the one last change I'll have is I mentioned the calculator, right? If you're doing a numeric question where students have to calculate an answer, you can give them a calculator on screen. Okay, so let's see what this looks like from our student perspective. Preview. And again, I'm just going to go straight to the, oh, there it is. Oh, because I have shuffle questions on. So I think that's why this is number 1 now. I'm just going to type this correctly in English, and I'll go straight to submit. And I will have gotten that question correct. Right, great. And let's do one more preview, and I'll type it in American style. And again, what our students see, right? They see the words type your answer. So that's great. Let's get that correct. And I'll hit submit. Oh, yay. Okay, great. Let's exit this. And I'll select return. And now I'm ready to tackle migration. In this course, I have 4 well, actually 3 quizzes and a survey. I have my chapter check questions. These are both multiple choice, and they both use groups of questions. So students are getting 3 out of 8, I think it is. Final exam is a straight up essay. Okay, so that should be pretty simple, and it is. And then this is a graded survey. So this is my pre-course survey I have students take at the beginning of the semester. It's due during the first week. And you can see I give them 10 points for taking it. I don't care how they answer the questions, they get the points. So the process of converting a classics quiz to a new quiz is called migration. And one thing I want to comment on is that the migration process is all done on the quizzes page. Migrated quizzes are not automatically added to the modules page, and I can't migrate a quiz from here, right? I don't have the migrate option here. Also, migrated quizzes do not replace classics quizzes. So after I do my migration, I then have to, delete or do something, or at least unpublish all of my classics quizzes. So that way my students don't get confused. Instructure is working right now, and it may be within this month, I'm not sure, a bulk migration process. And so that isn't there yet. So right now, if we're using, we have to do it one at a time. So let me go ahead and show that to you. I'll go to quizzes. And I'll start off with my essay quiz. Because that's pretty straightforward. So the essay quiz, I have one question here, and the question is a reflection. It's an essay. That's it. So very simple. You can see this essay quiz, excuse me, this is my final exam. It's due on May 14th. I have it so that I let students see their responses, but I don't let them see the correct answers. It's an essay question, so that doesn't matter. On the quizzes page, I select the Atkins menu for the classics quiz, and then I choose migrate. And migration problem, I don't have to select any of their options. It is usually pretty quick. There's only one question here, so it shouldn't be too long. I've gone through this in my history class where I do have 16 chapters. So I migrated 16 quizzes, and I spent a long time clicking and waiting. By default, a migrated quiz is unpublished. You see it's got the same due dates and a point value. I'm going to go straight to build. And on my build page, there's the instructions that I put. There's the essay questions. So this is all pretty good. If I look at settings, I should see restrict student view. Show correct answer is turned off. So that's pretty straightforward. I will go back to quizzes, and I'm going to refresh this page because I was using another thing there. So what I would need to do for this course, then I've migrated my quiz, is I would actually go back to the modules page, and I would have to add to this same module, right, a quiz. When you've enabled the new quizzes feature option and you're adding a quiz to a module, Canvas tells you whether the quiz that you're adding is a classics quiz or a new quiz. So I will add my new quiz. Okay, again, I see the icon is different. I'm going to remove, actually, I'm going to start off by unpublishing it and remove it from the module, and then publish the new quiz. So that change I just made the past couple of moments, nothing should have changed from my students' perspective on the grades page. Because as soon as you unpublish an assignment or a quiz, the points get taken away. They can't see it, of course. And then I publish the one that had the same points. Okay. So the next migration I'm going to do is, again, from the quizzes page. There we go. I'm going to migrate my chapter 1 check, and I'm going to talk about the difference between chapter 1 and chapter 16. They're both the same with one key difference in how it's set up. In chapter 1, this quiz, if I look at the questions tab, has a question group, right? So this is within the quiz, and within that question group are however many questions. This is 8, I think. And it says, right, pick 3 questions, 1 point per question. So this is a 3-point quiz. This one, however, my chapter 16 check, I have it linked to a question bank. And the question bank, I just noticed this because I copied it directly into this course, is the question bank doesn't even exist in this course. So of course it doesn't work. Shoot. I need to do this a little bit differently. So I need a question bank in this course. Let's go into, yeah, let me fix this quickly. Let's go to manage question banks. Good. So you see there's a chapter 2 question bank. I don't know why there isn't one for 16. So let's just change that so I can, again, make the observation and make the error. This is an old error. This was an unintentional error, excuse me. I'm going to make an intentional error here. All right, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to, again, this is in classics quizzes. So this is what I did for chapter 16 in my old course. New question group, pick 3 questions and link to a question bank. That was the key thing. And I want, oh, fine. It shows you all of your banks, all of your banks from all of your courses. Oh, there we go. Chapter 2, great. Select bank, perfect. Okay. Create group, save, perfect. Okay. So to reset where I was setting, right? In my chapter 1, these 2 quizzes, chapter 1 and 16, are both 3 questions out of 8 or 10 or whatever the number is, because I want my students to get different questions each time they take the quiz. In chapter 1, this is set up as a question group so that all the questions are part of the quiz. You can see that on the page here. In chapter 16, this is set up so that instead of having those questions as part of the quiz, I'm actually linking from this quiz out to a question bank. When I migrate these to new quizzes, these questions in this question group will automatically become an item bank under new quizzes. Canvas does not yet know what to do with this. So this is something that's not yet fixed, is converting a question bank into an item bank, classics quizzes to new quizzes. The workaround is actually not that hard. So let me break it first. I'll go ahead and start the migration for chapter 1, start the migration for chapter 2. You can have concurrent things going on. Okay, great. So chapter 16 is already finished. Super. So if I look at chapter 16 as a new quiz, and I didn't choose build, right? I get this error. There's no questions here because it can't find that question bank. Okay, so that's no fun. Let's hit return here. And there's my chapter 1 new quiz. So if I look at my chapter 1 new quiz, I'll select build. This again will look fine. 3 questions pulled randomly from the bank. Great. If I go back to my course navigation menu, an addition that was added as soon as I enabled new quizzes is a link called item banks. There it is. So item banks only exist in a Canvas course once new quizzes have been enabled. Students don't see item banks. If I select item banks, I should see there's that chapter, right? Chapter 1 check that I mentioned. You see 8 questions total. Here's a question bank that was created for chapter 16, but it's got 0 questions. That's no good. So let's get rid of that bank. Okay, it can't be used. That's fine. I need to go fix it. So here's how to fix it, the workaround, right? It is part of the chapter 2 bank that's linked from this quiz. The workaround is to actually click find questions and then find that chapter 2 bank, right? There's chapter 2. Select all. And then I'm going to create a new group that's within this quiz. I'm going to call the group name chapter 16. I know it's chapter 2. Pick 3, 1 point per question, create group, add questions. And now in my original chapter 16 classics quiz, I have basically done the workaround where I've converted those questions from a linked question bank to an in-quiz question group. I'll get rid of the first group. And now this chapter 16 check, I can, I'm going to get rid of the old one because that we know is bad. The old new quiz. Oh my gosh. And then I'm going to migrate chapter 16 check. after I convert it from a linked question bank to an in-quiz question group. All right, as this is happening, any questions on questions?
No, this is all really fascinating. Thank you.
Mhm. I'll go ahead and start the migrating of my pre-course survey while this is happening. And again, Canvas new quizzes does not yet allow for surveys. So when you migrate a survey, it's actually going to convert it to a quiz. Okay, chapter 16. In fact, when I refresh, you may think, wait, Greg, I see it under the surveys section. If I refresh a page, it'll move. There's that pre-course survey that I just created by migrating my graded survey. Okay, let's take a look at chapter 16. The new quiz, chapter 16, just to confirm rather that it looks good. Oh, what did I not do? I didn't hit build. And it's going to say it's great, right? Super. If I go back to look at the item banks in my class, there it is, chapter 16. It's got 10 questions. Item banks can be shared with other users. So I can share this with anyone in at Los Rios, basically. So if you have item banks that you want all of your courses to use in your program, this is actually something that you can do. So that's a great way to assess, or it could be a good way to assess program learning outcomes. Okay. All right, let's cancel there. Let's take a look at that quiz. Close. Let's go to quizzes. And I'm going to talk about my pre-course survey. So the pre-course survey, again, I want to give my students easy points at the beginning of the semester, give them some encouragements. I ask them important questions, of course. I ask them, are they attending this course from outside of CRC? Because we're part of the OEI, right? I asked them some questions about being an online student. I asked them a question like, do you think it makes a difference if the instructor has video presence in the course? I asked them the same question on the final exam, so to try to get a pre and post. I asked them about time management. Hopefully they've read the syllabus and they know when they should expect a response from me. Anyway, and all of these questions have feedback attached to them. And so here's one, right, where I ask in the feedback, I basically answer the questions that I ask them. So, and I really like doing this, pre-course quiz that helps me get to know my students a little bit better. But what I want to mention here is, I think, oh, shoot, let's go back to edit. Questions, show question details. So the question types, right? This is a multiple choice. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's keep going. Yeah. Okay. 2 essay questions. Where were you born? What I do is I like to take my students' answers collectively and make a Google map showing all the places we were born. So I say, hey, look, we're from all over the world, which is always the case. This is an essay question. What has been your best learning experience, right? Okay, I mentioned the essay questions because in my migrated survey, which is now a quiz, I'll go straight to build this time. Those essay questions are still there, but all of these questions are 0 points. So there's no way students could earn any points by taking this quiz unless I edit a question, and I could edit all the questions and give them points for value, give them a point value. But then I have to identify a correct answer. So here's a workaround for this, is I'll take one of the questions, it's usually the first one, I'll edit it. I'm going to make this question worth 10 points. Edit. Make this question worth 10 points. And one of the options that new quizzes gives us for multiple choice and also for true false questions is we can vary points by answer. So actually, I didn't need to give the points at the bottom. I should have just checked this box. Vary points by answer, which means I can say 10 points for the first question. I'm sorry, it's 10 points for the first answer, 10 points for the other answer. And then I'll add a note in the question stem that says, you must answer this question. And I wouldn't make it all caps, but I'm making it right now for the purposes of our demonstration here. You must answer the question to earn the points for this survey. Either answer will give you those points. Okay. Let me hit done. And let's take a look at the preview for this. So I will answer the question. I'm just going to put in a few answers here. And this pre-course survey in my class, I have linked to my I'll say other. Well, let me do this and then I'll come back and share the problems that I discovered. So I'll submit, again, previewing it, right? Yep, I'm ready. My auto grading is going to be, oh, I got 10 out of 10, great. But 2 questions require grading. You see the feedback, right? That's there. So that all works. That's great. Look at that. Oh, that got marked as incorrect. What? There's still a correct answer, even though there were 0 points. The other problem with this is I don't like ungraded answers. Here we go, right? Waiting for the grade. I don't want my students to see these ungraded answers. I don't like that as a teacher. So the other workaround, and there's 2 workarounds. One is I could edit this quiz. Let's go to settings. I don't want to see if the responses are correct or incorrect. So that's one thing I can change. I do want them to see their response in my feedback. I don't want the points possible overall and per question. Let's see what that looks like. So let's go back to return. No, not return. I've done that. Yeah. So let's build. Let's take a look at preview. Let's see what that looks like. And I'll just answer that question and hit submit. Again, this is what my students would see. So a student got 10 out of 10. They still see 2 questions require grading. Okay, good. They didn't see the correct answer. So that was the thing I should have done from the beginning. I still don't like this having to wait for the answers to be graded. And so the one workaround I did was I basically converted those to different question types, right? So let's add a question here and I can call this, I'll make this a fill in the blank. And the question stem will be, where were you born? I'll have the same question. Include city and country. And then I'm going to give it those 2 ticks and it's going to be birthplace. And I'm going to leave it open entry because there really isn't a correct answer there. Right. So let's get rid of that essay question. And then the best learning experience, because that can be kind of long. The other workaround, the part of this workaround is just to make it a part of my introductions discussion. So I'll get rid of that. And now, oh, look, that was worth 1 point. I didn't correct it to 0. Sorry for the quick scrolling there, right? Fill in the blank. That's fine. This is not what I actually do in my history class, but I'm still kind of sharing the workaround that I came up with. So again, here's what a student would say for this, right? I'll just jump straight down to that where were you born question, right? Type your answer, great. So I can type Sacramento, California, super. And then I'll hit submit. Okay, again, I'll get 0 points this time. I should get 0 out of 0. No, I'll get some. Why? Because I have a 1 point question there, right? Look at all the things that I'm thinking about, all the mistakes that I made. What I ended up actually doing, oh, I got 0 out of 11. Of course, because that was an incorrect answer on that one. There it is. That's what I typed. What I ended up doing in my history classes this semester is for my pre-course survey, I might have a final exam that's also a graded survey. I just used classics quizzes for those and kept those as they are because we can use both classics and new quizzes in the same course. Okay. So that was settings and questions. I'm going to do a quick review here to make sure I covered everything that's on my slides here. The edit versus build, right? Those are two choices. Edit, it's like any other assignment, name, points, and dates. Build for the settings and the questions. And then for migration, good for us to know is that the classic quiz is not deleted, and we have to convert question banks to question groups before we do that migration. Okay. Any final questions? I'm going to show you these 3 resources I have listed here, but any final questions before we wrap up?
Nope, thank you.
So the 3 resources that I have here, I will go ahead and put the links in the chat for you, and they'll be included with the recording, and I'll show you the links here. One is the New Quizzes Hub. So this is the space in the Canvas community where anyone can go get a user account, participate in the discussions. You can see there's a discussion forum. There are the release notes, all that kind of stuff. And then included within this are these 2 resources. One is called the Instructure New Quizzes Readiness Checklist. So I'll put that link in the chat. And this is a document that basically is in some ways a prose version of this video that we just did, that you participated in, that I just made, or that we made together. And then the other link here is this new feature comparison between new quizzes and classic quizzes. These 2 documents are both dynamic. They are updated by Instructure as changes are made. So those are good things for us to know. I'll mention one last thing in the New Quizzes Hub. That front page has the roadmap, and this will show us what's coming up. So this quarter, they're doing some changes here, and I think later Q3 23 and beyond is we should see listed surveys. Survey. Oh, it's not listed here. Well, that's on their Canvas roadmap there. So anyway, they have committed, I'm sure of that they will be adding surveys to new quizzes. All right. Well, thank you for your attendance and also for watching this recording. As always, you can contact the CRC Distance Ed team with any questions, and I look forward to helping you work with and use and participate in discussions about the Canvas new quizzes.
Thank you, Greg.
Mm-hmm.